Good day, I'm Dr. T and welcome to my office. So as chemists, when we want to separate out chemicals, what we're really doing is exploiting one or more of their physical properties in order to distinguish between them and thus do the separation. Typically, the focus is going to end up being their intermolecular forces, so what type of intermolecular forces they have and how strong those are, as well as the size of the molecules. So one of the first ways that we can do this, and this one dates back to antiquity, is to separate molecules based on boiling point. We actually have a couple of approaches to do so. The oldest and still very, very common, incredibly profoundly useful method is distillation. So in distillation, you are going to take your crude material. This could be, some crude oil. This could be the mash for which you're going to make distilled spirits. Whatever your crude source is, your mixture that you're wanting to separate out. That's going to go into the bottom of your distillation apparatus. That will then be heated. As it's heated, you're going to get the material to start boiling. And what you're going to get is the vapor above it is going to be a blend. It's also going to be a mixture, but it's going to be more enriched in the one that has the lowest boiling point. So now, what you can either do is you can just take the vapor straight off, but that's not going to give you a lot of separation. If your boiling points are really far apart, so that one's going to have, it's a nice small molecule, which is going to cause a low boiling point, and maybe it also has weak intermolecular forces, which is also going to cause a low boiling point. So if you're trying to separate something with a very low boiling point from a very big boiling point, that may be good enough. That enrichment is going to be proportional to the differences in their boiling points. So if you can cause enough of it to vaporize, enough of it to get nice and evaporated and it goes off, great. Now, most of the time, your boiling points aren't far enough away that you can just, take the vapor straight off. So usually what you want to do is have a little bit of a column going up. And if it's just a little column going up, a little bit of an area for them to kind of spread out, we call that simple distillation. If it's a nice long tube, maybe some material for them to cling to, some extra surface area, what we would call packing, we'll call that fractional distillation. And so the idea here is that the longer up the tube they're able to go, you're going to get this temperature gradient, just simply because you're warming it from the bottom and the material you're using is probably not an awesome conductor, or the material is just so big that the heat doesn't get up and it's not uniform. So as you go up, both molecules are going to be tempted to condense on the sides, but the molecule that is has a higher boiling point, the one that has stronger intermolecular forces and or is bigger, that's going to be more tempted to condense. So more of that will be condensing on the side and dripping back down. And the higher up you go, and you have this nice gentle temperature gradient, the more and more enriched you're going to be in the one that has the lowest boiling point, the one that's least tempted to condense. And this way, you can separate out very precisely based on boiling point. Now, the nature of your apparatus, of course, depends on how much effort you want to put into separating these chemicals. Do they have wildly different boiling points and you just need a basic separation? You'll have a simple one with very little column to it. You might even, we don't use retorts anymore, but this is what the old retorts were for. You might have a very long tube with lots of extra stuff, fingers sticking into it, or glass wool or whatnot, to really tempt the one with a slightly higher boiling point to condense and drip back down, thus allowing a very strong separation, but taking longer and taking more work. Of course, you might go for a much larger apparatus, something like is used in petroleum distillation, where it's a gigantic multi-story tower with multiple outlets so that you can control and get multiple different chemicals separated at the same time, because you are dealing with trains and ocean tankers worth of material, not with milliliters. Now, so that's distillation, and we've been doing that really since antiquity. You look at the writings of Al-Jabbar or Al-Razi, and they both have references to distillation in the Middle Ages. Now, if you want to do, an extremely delicate separation, what you want to do is have a longer and longer tube. And there is another technique that we use called gas chromatography. And I'll jump into what the other techniques that are referred to as chromatography are, because gas chromatography behaves somewhat differently than those. So I'll do those in a later video. But you can effectively lengthen that tube to the point of comically long dimensions. Instead of inches long or maybe a meter, you can put it into dozens of meters. A very, very thin tube, very, very long, coil it up, and then you can separate out chemicals very, very precisely based on their boiling points as they are sticking to the walls of the tube and then evaporating and then getting kicked along with a little bit of helium or some other carrier gas. And as they slowly pass the way through this gigantically long tube that's all coiled up inside the instrument, then they're separated out very precisely. And this is a great way of doing analysis. It's not usually a particularly good approach to purify substances because it works with such small quantities. But if you want to identify the contents of a mixture, say your fuel oil or something like that, it's a wonderful approach to separate out chemicals based on their boiling point. By basically doing a distillation, except for you're making a very thin, insanely, ludicrously long column that, of course, other changes have to take place with. But it's the basically same idea as distillation, but extended out in length to an absolutely insane extreme. But doing so gives you this beautiful separation. That's a powerful technique that we use quite a lot in chemistry. So with that said, I will jump into other separation techniques in later videos, and have a wonderful day.